Welcome to the Words That Change Lives podcast, helping leaders, coaches, and small business owners to 10 times the impact of their message. Join us as we delve into the art of powerful language, enabling you to speak with unwavering honesty, communicate authentically, and create a lasting impression with every word.
"10 years ago, just a few weeks ago, I made the scary, bold, and exciting decision to leave the safety of my corporate senior role within a financial services organization within talent and leadership development and break out on my own. And the reason for that decision, I thought, was tenacity and drive and ambition, but really it was running away because I had huge imposter syndrome, I had an anxiety disorder, and I was suffering a bit of an identity crisis after having my daughter and then son, and having lots of issues and challenges with their health and sleep and all those sorts of things. So the reason for leaving was really kind of running away, but I made the decision to do something completely different. I thought I couldn't do my corporate career anymore, which was standing up in front of executives, training them on presentation, storytelling, leadership behavior, communication, all of those sorts of things. Can't do that anymore. Can't stand up in front of a room full of people. I'm going to launch a different business, completely different, as a child sleep consultant, and then that'll be fine. Well, my goodness, what a roller coaster it's been in the last 10 years from that decision to do that to then where I am now, the different iterations of my business, the evolution of my business, and how many things have happened in that time. I'm really proud that I'm still here 10 years later. It is, of course, a very different version of my business now than it was 10 years ago, but I've learned so much in that time. And I can honestly say I am so happy, I'm so fulfilled, I feel so excited to get up every day and do this work. It hasn't been easy, but it's also been so exciting and so fun. And so this episode, I'm dedicating to some reflections. You know, I could say 10 lessons in 10 years. I mean, it sounds quite natty, but lots of people say that. But there are 10 lessons in 10 years. And I'm going to share them because, you know, wherever you are on your business journey, it's just sometimes nice to hear what other people have learned. You may have experienced the same things, but I want to share this because it's quite a moment for me and I do feel quite proud. So I'm putting a stake in the ground and celebrating, and I hope you'll celebrate with me. So the first reflection I have discovered, and I discovered this, this is a journey, not a destination, is this first reflection, is that the barriers to showing up consistently need to be removed. Now, I'm talking about when you are building a business where you are the forefront of that brand or that business, you are the brand. And so it is you that needs to sell. It's you that needs to represent yourself. You're not sort of hiding behind a company. You are the brand. And so when you do that, you have to show up on social media. You have to go to networking events. You have to be visible wherever you need to be visible in order for people to know about you, to build a following, to build an audience, and to generate leads into your business. I didn't know any of this when I first started. And I'd say when I first started my first business with the sleep coaching business, I didn't have any barriers because I was kind of gung-ho, like a pendulum swing going the other way. I just showed up wherever I needed to, and I didn't know where to show up. So I literally just started a Facebook page and started showing up there, ran a few boost ads, had no idea what I was doing, and actually started to build a following. And also at the same time, I was writing a blog during my child consultant training, and I was sharing my learnings in that blog. I look back at that now and I think, well done, Helen, because, you know, I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have a coach, I didn't have anybody telling me what to do, but those things really worked because I did build a following and a client base out of this child consulting business. But when my business then evolved and I moved through the different evolutions, which I will talk about a little bit later on, I started to get barriers that were coming up. Now, this was because I was stepping back into my area of expertise, my true area of expertise. And so I started to worry about what people were thinking. No, on LinkedIn, what about all my ex-employees? What about all my old employees? And on Facebook, what about family members or, people that I'd started to build connections with in the industry. And this started to form barriers, which meant I found it difficult to, speak truthfully, speak openly, speak vulnerably. And this was a key one because a lot of my shift in my business came from being more vulnerable, because I had to be if I was going to tell the true story of what happened. And that was actually my TEDx talk that enabled me to do that. The TEDx talk was a pivotal moment in sharing what really had happened, because before that I was just stuffing that down and ignoring that. It also sort of coincided with challenges and difficulties in my marriage. And so removing those barriers and just getting on a TEDx stage and telling my story, which involved me talking about anxiety disorder and loss of identity, was a game changer. From there, I was able to step into who I really was, my area of expertise, which is in leadership development, behavior, communication, and standing up and presenting and speaking and stepping into that niche really helped me to remove those barriers. But what I will say is, and these are mindset barriers. What I'll say is that this is a journey, not a destination. I still have to do this. Things happen and I don't want to show up. I don't want to get online. I don't want to go to that meeting or go to that event, that networking event or whatever it might be. So continually working on the barriers that might come up for you in terms of not wanting to show up, speak up, be truthful, be honest, be yourself, is absolutely key. So that's the first one. The second is that community is everything. So again, when I first started, and they're now moving into the sort of second iteration of my business, I did build a community with the sleep coaching business. I built a community on my Facebook page and on my blog. I didn't have an email address or anything like that. I didn't have a lead magnet. I did have a website, but it was all very basic. But I did build a community on my Facebook page, and I did live Q&As where I'd answer questions on sleep and stuff like that. That's how I got clients. But when my niche changed, I moved more into the expertise that I have now. And that was a decision I made because I realized that I was building a house on sand with the sleep consulting business. That wasn't my area of expertise. And it kind of came to a realization that I wasn't enjoying the work that I was doing. I opened up a Facebook group and I called this Facebook group the Tenacious Lady Entrepreneurs, the Tenacious Tribe of Lady Entrepreneurs. I cringe, and I know you're cringing with me, but this was about 9 years ago, guys, okay? 8 years ago, something like that. And this was a safe space for women to come and join, and anybody starting a business or thinking of starting a business. And all I focused on was that community. I didn't focus on selling anything. Again, I didn't have a coach at this time, didn't have any type of mentor. I was learning and gleaning. And I then did start taking on coaches and mentors. Jessica Lorimer is one of them. Shout out to Jessica. But we didn't really know what I was doing when I was building this community. All I knew was I wanted a sense of community where I could show up as my true self, which I did. I turned up live most days. I just spoke from the heart, and it worked. Now, since then, community means different things for me. I don't have a Facebook group anymore. It became too time-consuming and difficult to remain engaged, and it started to feel heavy for me. And so I removed my Facebook groups, but I still do have community. I have it in different places now. So I have community in the real world in terms of business. And that looks like the Brighton Chamber, the people that I've met within local networks in Brighton. I am a member of Soho House, where I meet my clients, and I have coaching sessions there, and I've been to lots of events there, and there's a little community building there. I have community with my podcast now. So people that listen to my podcast get in touch. And even though it's not like one central place that people are talking to me, there is a sense of community there's also a sense of community with the people that follow me on social media, particularly Facebook. There's still lots of people from my older communities on there. And there's a community on Facebook where, people that have been running their businesses as long as I have, we all know each other and we support each other. And that's a really great feeling. And I think it's so important to have a community when you're building a business and having different communities. So the other communities I've been part of have been paid communities. So I've been part of lots of different masterminds, lots of different memberships. I've got to give a shout out to Jess again, because she's been a consistent mentor to me over these last 10 years. She has the C-suite. That's still got a great community, a Facebook group of people that know and support each other. There's lots of different communities that I am part of, that I have built over or have been, contributed to or become part of over the last 10 years that are absolutely crucial to my business success. Hands down, without a doubt. You cannot do this alone. You can only do this with a sense of community. And there's so many out there for the taking. So grab them, honestly. If you're feeling lonely or isolated, connect. I became a little bit isolated for a time after I had had quite a few difficult periods in my life, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. And I isolated. If you work from home, it's easy to not go out and just do all your business and not see anybody. But I knew that connection was going to be the solution. So I started getting out more, started connecting communities, business communities more. And now, I'm feeling really fulfilled in that area. The third is focusing on your strengths and limit the rest. Now, I'm a bit biased towards this because I learned how to, I studied strengths focused psychology and positive psychology when I was in the corporate world. And so I knew that focusing on the things you're good at and then, delegating or, not doing the things that you're not good at was going to be the thing to focus on. But I absolutely do contribute that strategy to still being here today. And the reason why is because when you first start your business, you aren't just delivering the service. So at the first iteration, I was a sleep coach. And then I was, focusing on leadership coaching, business coaching. And then I stepped into the niche of verbal communication, speaker coaching, and still being a consultant in the corporate world, but really focusing on communication, influence, negotiation, conflict, and all that sort of stuff. But that's my specialism and skill. So really, if you're building a business at the start, you want to be focusing on doing that as much as possible, because of course that's also going to be generating the revenue for you. However, you also have to put on all the other hats. You have to learn how to get a website up and running. You have to learn how to market yourself and build a following online and communicate in a way that's going to build interest in what you're saying and trust and credibility. You actually have to deliver for your clients and then showcase the results. You have to manage the books and the money coming into the business. You have to manage the budget. You have to understand all the different things you have to spend money on. There's lots of different hats to put on. And what I knew early on is that I am not interested or don't find fun in technical aspects. So building a website or the technical pages or things that are involved in doing that, anything technical, anything money related in terms of, doing my accounts myself and things like that. Now, you might say, well, in the beginning, you don't have any money to do that sort of thing. I know. So when I first started, I did not have any money to do anything. I did start launching my business before I left the corporate world. So there was a lap over before I fully left because I wanted to feel secure, and I had paying clients when I left. However, I was doing everything and it was taking an inordinate amount of time, which meant less time for actually delivering and doing the thing that I enjoyed doing. So early on, and I'm saying, I think, gosh, it must have been within the first 6 months, I got a VA, a virtual assistant. And this VA helped me to manage my books in terms of the accounts. She helped me to build things like lead pages, which were for lead magnets, which I didn't have the expertise in, and it was just too time consuming for me. She did updates to my website. So I got a friend actually, to build my website for me. And then she did the updates on the website. So I think I got her for about 8 hours a month in the beginning, which, is, I felt money well spent, because I could then focus on the things that I really could excel at. Now, there may be things that you do in your business that you enjoy. You may be techie. You may like building all those funnels and pages and all the technical stuff. Well, great. If it gives you energy and joy and you can actually churn that out and you can be really productive with that, then do that. But there are going to be things that you are not good at, that you don't enjoy, that don't give you energy. So my advice there is damage limit those things and focus on the things that really give you joy. So now, 10 years later, I have a bookkeeper, I have an accountant, I have a web developer, I have a VA for lots of different types of things, for creating all the visuals in my business, and that's Carol Jamieson. I have to give her a shout out. I have to give a shout out to Kelly Blondell as well, who has helped me with loads of stuff to do with the functioning and the process and the flows of all the behind the scenes of all of the systems that I have in place. As you build over 10 years, you then create this sort of monster of online myriad of systems, including lots of different types of lead magnets, lots of different sales pages that funnel to different places, passive courses, live programs, one-to-one coaching, corporate work, all different types of revenue streams and the systems behind them, the subscriptions behind them, all of the things that it takes to make those sorts of things happen. The amazing ladies that I have supporting me in that, they do those things for me. Carol helps me with my content. I write the content. She helps set that up through all the various different social media channels so that they go out every week. It's a system that I have honed over the years, and I only focus on the things that I am good at, and I damage limit the rest. Now, when I say damage limit, I mean sometimes you're going to need to know how to do something so you've got the knowledge of it, so that people don't swindle you, because it's important to not be swindled. And I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute, but it's about just knowing enough so that you can know whether you're good at something or not, and make sure that other people who are better at those sorts of things can support you so that you can focus on the things that are really good. There's another thing with this is a lot of people I know say, well, don't clean your house, get a cleaner, because the time that you can be spent with your clients is going to earn you much more than cleaning your house. And that's true as well. I did have a cleaner for a very long time, actually, and I don't now, because I'm in a smaller house and my kids help me clean. But if that was to change, then yeah, I would do that, because I charge much more than it would cost to get a cleaner, which is an important thing to consider. Okay, so being swindled is an important thing to talk about, because this has happened to me. Okay, I have invested in things throughout 10 years of my business that have turned out to be not what I invested in. I've had people steal my stuff. I've had people say not very nice things about me. It's made me lose my faith in the coaching industry at various points. I've stepped away, I've come back. I've had life curveballs thrown, big ones where I didn't know if I could carry on. And so this part of the podcast episode is called Know That Curveballs Will Come, right? It is inevitable. So in 10 years, I've experienced many, many, many situations where I've maybe trusted people and I've been let down by those people. I've had people take my work and use it. I have had major life events like divorce, death of my dear dad, health scares, a pandemic. Huge things have happened in 10 years, of course. Economic challenges because of things like COVID. Curveballs will come when you're running a business. There will be challenges. There will be hard moments. There will be the valleys, not just the mountaintops. It is inevitable. And I think my biggest reflection on this is when I first started out, I didn't know any of this. Of course I didn't. I was a protected employee in the corporate world. I had no idea about the fact that people could be devious and not say who they say they are, or give you what they say they're going to give you. I've lost a lot of money in certain situations, and I have learned so much from those difficult moments. And I guess what's the lesson here? The lesson here is knowing that those things are going to happen and building some kind of resilience around them. Now, that's easier said than done when those things haven't happened yet, because you don't know what you don't know. And then when these things happen, it can be a pretty big blow. And I will say that having a health scare, a divorce, and losing my dad, and then my mum becoming poorly all within 6 months was a huge thing for me. It's a huge curveball. It actually made me shrink back. I look at that kind of the before and after of those events as a very different version of me. And so that meant that a different version of me showed up, or wanted to show up in certain ways, didn't want to do things how I'd done before. So before all of that happened, I was doing lots of launches, I was doing lots of group programs, I had a mastermind, I was fully focused on the consumer business. And after those events, my business took on a very different look. I was doing a lot more corporate facing stuff, and the consumer stuff was less heavily focused, but still had a presence, but it just wasn't as heavily focused. I wasn't doing all of those things, and it felt much better not having to relentlessly show up all the time, because having those things happen did knock my confidence, did knock my identity a little bit. I didn't really want to show up. I wanted to kind of just heal and behind closed doors, really. However, you've got to still find a way of showing up, even though those things happen, but it just has to be in a way that's good for you. So if you've been following me for any amount of time, you might notice that I used to do so many lives. I used to do video all the time. Now I prefer audio. I love doing this podcast. And maybe I'll come back to video again. But for now, I save those moments for when I'm with my clients, or I'm doing a talk, or I'm training, because that's what feels good. I'm not so out there anymore. And that's because of the curveballs, and that's fine, because, you may experience big curveballs in your life, and that might not affect how you feel about things, but it might, and that's okay. I think knowing that challenges are going to come, and the fact that I am still here and I am still running a business, even though I've had all those challenges, when I could have given up, but I didn't, I'm really proud of. And, I look back on that and I think, okay, well, for the future, maintain that level of resilience, because more curveballs are going to come. That's just life, right? The other thing that is important, I think, is encouraging your creativity. Now, you're probably going to have creative elements to your thinking or your expression if you're thinking of running your business, or you are running your own business. And that's because creativity sparks ideas. And it's in my creative moments that my best ideas have come for my business. New programs, new services, new way of doing things, new ways of showing up. And it's having that creative thinking that has enabled me to do all those things and come up with all those ideas. And I remember, when I first launched the second iteration of my business, which is the more business-focused business coaching, not the sleep coaching, I was on holiday and I came up with this whole program on the Sun Lounger. And I launched it and it was really successful. And in having those sparky creative moments, I love it. I love being creative. I love having the freedom to express myself creatively through my work. Gosh, that's such a fulfilling thing, because in the corporate world, of course I couldn't do that. I didn't have that ability to express myself in that way. I tried quite a few times and failed, because the constraints were too big. But when you run your own business, you can do what the hell you want. Yeah, sometimes it won't work. I've launched programs that haven't worked, or ideas that haven't worked. That's okay. The good thing is that I've been able to be creative in my expression. Now, there's a caveat with this, in that you can get blocked creatively, and the aforementioned curveballs can really block your creativity. When you're going through a hard time, actually, it's scientifically proven that the mindset blinkers go on because you're in survival mode. So creative expression is not able to be accessed because you're blinkered. You're focusing on food, water, sleep, regulating the nervous system, But all that aside is that it's important to understand that creating the space for creativity is huge in your business. So creating space for idea generation and creative thought is so important. Now, where does that come from? That comes from rest. That comes from headspace. So I recently went on holiday to Cyprus. And before I went on holiday, I was tired. I hadn't had a proper holiday in years. I'd been through a divorce. I bought this house. I put all my money in this house. We'd done UK breaks, but UK breaks with 2 kids on my own is not a break. Like 3 days, in a park somewhere in Dorset. Lovely, fun, but not a break. And so when I was sat on the sun lounger in Cyprus, oh my God, the ideas just came bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. It was crazy how many ideas came up, and they've continued to since then. So I cannot underestimate the importance of creating space, headspace in your business, and rest. Time out is so important. Now, you may be someone who loves your work, but you can love your work and still burn yourself out. You can become so creatively stymied by not stopping and not taking breaks. Now, I know you're going to be like, oh God, I hear this all the time. It is so important. So encourage your creativity by creating headspace, getting rest, taking time out away from it, so that you can have a different viewpoint and perspective. The other thing I want to talk about is something I believe that every business owner probably has as an innate driver, which I have, which is grit or tenacity. Now, what is that? It's having a kind of almost belligerent internal driver that feels like, when you've got an idea in your head or you want something to happen, you're like a dog with a bone. You don't let go of that idea. You don't let go of that thought until you've made it happen. Now, this is something to absolutely continue to tap into as a business owner. I had this, which is why I called that Facebook group the Tenacious Tribe of Lady Entrepreneurs. Cringe, by the way, because I knew tenacity was this driver. I had this in volumes at the beginning of my business. Well, I still do now, but it's a bit tempered. I had it almost, gung-ho at the beginning. I wanted to leave the corporate world and I was going to make this work by hook or by crook. And I ruffled feathers along the way, particularly with family members and with my husband. Gosh, because of course they couldn't see what I saw. And I saw a drive so strong that I was going to make this work no matter what. Now, you've got to have that. You've got to have that for any type of business longevity. And if you start to lose that, then it's important to reevaluate and reassess why. Because you're always going to have that for something. And it could be different things at different times. And that's why evolving, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, is so important in your business so that you can re-tap into that tenacity, that gritty drive that will enable you to push and keep going and stay motivated despite the setbacks, despite the lack of wins and validation or, the low points. It keeps you going. And I think within this lesson is also this taking and unhooking the need for validation away. Now, I am an externally motivated person, which means that I need feedback to feel motivated. There's, two types of people on a various sort of spectrum who are motivated by external people or things, or internal. The people who are internally motivated don't necessarily need external validation, but they appreciate it. Whereas someone who's externally motivated, like myself, does need it to know they've done a good job. And when you run your own business, sometimes that's hard because you haven't got a boss praising you. You haven't got anybody, on your shoulder saying, well done, I'm proud of you for what you did there. or that was excellent, you did a good job there. You don't have that. So you take your validation from your wins, from your feedback from your clients, from the sales, from the fulfilling work you're doing. And when you go through a period of not getting any type of validation, which I have over the last 10 years, there have been periods where, I was showing up online and I wasn't getting the feedback I needed to know I was doing a good job. And there was a dip in client sales over a period of time, especially over COVID. That was a really tricky time in terms of lack of client sales and corporate work, that you start to then dip in terms of confidence. And this is where your tenacity needs to kick in. So unhooking as much as you can from external validation is obviously really good, and relying on your own internal motivation is really, really important. However, if you're an externally validated person like me, it's about relying on that inner tenacity to keep you going until the wins start showing up again, and it's feeling good. You're getting validated left, right, and center from client feedback, from happy customers, from people online, from your community, and from the results you're getting for people and new business coming in. If you're not getting that type of external feedback right now, you've got to tap into that inner drive. Where's the grit? How did it help you in the first place? Where is it now? Because it's going to help you through. That is the golden thread throughout the whole of the 10 years that I have. Again, why I'm still here, because of that inner drive and just not giving up, basically. I felt like giving up many times. Sometimes I thought, oh God, it would just be easier if I go back and get a job. I'm so glad I didn't do that. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing for anybody who has done that. 100% don't, I'm not knocking that. For me, I'm glad that I didn't do that. Now I get the best of both worlds because I work with a number of different organizations, one on a long-term basis. I'm not employed by them, but I keep getting work across the different divisions. It's a large organization. That for me is fulfilling, because that's sort of like a long-term relationship, but I'm not employed by them. And so I get the benefits of being my own boss, and whilst having, that relationship as well. Another reflection is to adapt to the environment. Now, over the last 10 years, there's been a huge financial landscape changes, economic changes, there's been wars, there's been a pandemic, there's been all sorts of huge things happening outside in the world. And that has had an impact on decision making for customers, buying habits, cost of living crisis going up, COVID, meaning everybody was stuck in their houses. And adaptation for me has been a key part of being able to keep going. And one in particular that I want to focus on is COVID, because before COVID, I was in a cushy little position. I had just started doing corporate work in the last sort of 6 months, as well as my consumer. So the consumer side of my business was going great. I had a mastermind, I had group programs, I had one-to-one coaching, I had lots of different revenue streams. I was doing the speaking and getting paid for the speaking. And I had a load of live events lined up. My own events, I did a conference in Brighton. So I had those lined up, live events in Brighton. And I had lots of in-person events lined up in the corporate world that I was going to get paid for, and paid well for. And in the second week of March 2020, that all changed. The offices and the businesses just closed their doors and cancelled all of their events. My events were cancelled. Everybody got scared and went into lockdown, literally and figuratively, and stopped buying things. And I didn't know what to do. I was stuck at home with my kids. I had to homeschool them. I know you all know this. I know that you all experience this as well. This is nothing new. But I went through a real difficult period because I didn't have the headspace to think creatively, because I was at home with my kids. We couldn't go out. We had, was it 1 hour a day? I look back on that and I think, God, that's absolutely mad. But hey ho, I didn't know at the time. And we won't go into thoughts and feelings around everything that happened there. But at the time, I was stuck. I couldn't do any work. I had to homeschool them. I didn't have the headspace, and I was scared because I was also just freshly separated and having to forge out a future by myself. And I had to adapt. And I will say that Jessica Lorimer was amazing in this time as a mentor. Having mentors at the right times is really good, by the way. I haven't actually made that a particular lesson on its own, but I will say that I haven't always had to have a mentor, but having the right one is really important at the right time. And Jessica has always come through at the right time as being a really good mentor. And she helped me to adapt in terms of thinking for the consumer audience what would be really relevant to them. And so I created 2 new courses, which were passive courses. I was able to do that because they didn't involve doing coaching sessions or leaving the house. And I was able to build these 2 passive courses, which was Virtual Speaking Pro, because I was very used to delivering online stuff, online training programs and courses and talks and all of that. I put all of my knowledge on how to virtually show up, live streams, webinars, podcast interviews, all of those sorts of things. And I put that in a course, and it was like 6 different ways that you can show up virtually to earn money. That was called Virtual Speaking Pro. Then I created Virtual Training Pro because we saw that a lot of trainers and consultants who had been delivering in person had to then show up online and deliver stuff online. It's very, very different. So then I created a course on how to take your in-person training and deliver it as comprehensive online programs. I could not have done that without the help of a mentor to spark those ideas. I created those courses. I did launch those courses, but I did very soft launches. And what I will say is, at the time, it didn't generate the revenue I needed it to. One thing that happened after that is I pitched a big program to a corporate company and landed it, and it was for a really good sum of money. And I delivered that program for 6 months, and that completely saved the business. And then I was able to build from there again. But these courses are serving me still now because they are great assets for complementary things for my one-to-one clients. You get access to these courses if you work one-to-one with me. I've offered discounts on them and offers at certain times of year, and I've had a surge of sales through them, and they're just available on the website for people to buy as and when they want. And it's still something that people need, and it's still relevant because people are now delivering more online stuff than they did before the pandemic. So adapting in that way really did help me. And then that then launched a whole nother thing, which is now, I have a lot of corporate work that I really love delivering. I go in, I deliver complex leadership programs looking at entrenched behavioral dynamics using my psychometric profiling, 360 work. I do deep coaching with executives, and I help them with their influence and communication. I do, presentations, training. I do training on how to increase the impact of your virtual communication. I do influencing skills programs. I do conflict resolution. I do all those sorts of things in the corporate world. I deliver lunch and learns on lots of different topics. I love that work. I really, really do. And that's a consistent flow of work that comes in now. Plus, I now also, because I came back into the consumer world after retreating, and I launched my Ultimate Speaker program last year. And now I have built up again a really great client base of one-to-one clients who I'm helping to tell their stories, create signature talks, deliver TED Talks, land TED Talks. And that's a really nice, enjoyable side of my business. So I've got a real varied, but it was only through adapting in the difficult times that has enabled me to then do this now, where I am now. And so adaptation, what's that definition of insanity? Doing, hitting a hammer on the wall at the same point, expecting a different result, right? You can't just keep plugging away doing the same thing when the environment, the culture, the economic climate is dictating something different. It's changing people's behaviors or buying decisions. You've got to adapt to that and kind of be maybe a little bit ahead of the game with that. The other thing I'd say is failing forward. Now, this is something that probably everybody hears, but you're going to muck it up. You're gonna make mistakes. It's okay. Gosh, I still make mistakes. I still fail at things. I might put an idea forward, or, a thought, have a burst of creativity and put something out there and it doesn't do as well. Or, I make a decision that was a bad decision. You learn. You learn from those decisions, Like the most recent curveball I had was when my daughter was really struggling at secondary school. She didn't go for months and months and months. And she was very, she wasn't in a good place. And that really had an effect on how I was doing things. And I made lots of mistakes in that time in terms of running my business because my mindset wasn't in the right place. And I learned so much from that as to how I might deal with something like that. Again, if she got, she's very happy now. She's in a school that she loves and I'm really grateful. And, I feel so happy that she's happy now. But, I think of the things that I did, the decisions I made during that time that maybe were mistakes. Well, I've learned from that now, And failing forward is knowing that you're going to fail. You're going to make a decision that maybe isn't the best one, but you learn from it, right? You might say something that you don't mean, or, you might show up in a certain way that, isn't how you want to do it. You might make an investment that isn't necessarily the right investment. You might see it as a failure. You might do a launch that isn't as successful as you want it to be and you think it's a failure. Well, these are not failures because we always move forward. No matter what happens, you're always learning about these lessons, these decisions that you've made, and you do it differently next time, right? That's how we learn. Business cannot be successful if there's no mistakes or no failures. I look back over the last 10 years and I think, God, there's so many things I did, decisions I made. One in particular, it was quite early on. I made a really big investment with money I didn't really have, with a course which was way beyond my comprehension at the time. I didn't need it, and it was just too complex in terms of automated ads running to a funnel with an automated webinar, which then funneled people into, I see now how beneficial that would have been, but I wasn't ready for that type of investment. I wasn't ready for that type of commitment. I wasn't knowledgeable enough. I needed to start simple, which is another lesson. Start simple, focus on the main thing, keep the main thing the main thing. You don't need all the bells and whistles early on. Just keep very focused on one way of generating leads, building one following on one platform and focusing on generating leads a simple way so you can build proof of concept of your programs and then you can start to build from there. But I did this investment very early on and it was a failure, right? But I learned so much from it and I actually ended up using it later, which was good. But another one is building your brand and evolving your brand. The brand is so important, but what the brand is built on is even more important. Now, when I first launched my business, I didn't know what my brand was at all. But through a lot of work, I started to build these blocks, these foundations of a leadership brand based on my corporate work. Values. What are your values? Is so important. The reason why is because you can make decisions based on these values. You show up based on these values. Developing a core story really helped me because I started sharing that everywhere. And that's part of your brand. Developing your core story is really important because that's part of your brand. And I started sharing that everywhere. Getting really clear on your strengths and your USP and all of these things, your thought leader messages, I talk about a lot, is really, really important in terms of building a brand because that's then how you're showing up and you can stay consistent with that. And then people get to know you for that. But also evolving the brand is really important because you are going to change. I think of the different versions of me over the last 10 years, there has been a few. Where I am today, where there is a circle on the map for me today, is per the Rumi quote, is such a different version of me to that sleep coach 10 years ago, or the transformational life coach that came a few years later, or the business coach that came a year after that, or then stepping into this particular niche, which has been the last sort of five years, has been quite consistent in this particular niche. I've evolved. My values have changed. What's important to me has changed. How I show up has changed. My core story has changed. So if you go back to episode 1, and 2, you'll hear about that. So all of these things need to evolve, just like Madonna has evolved over her many, many years within the music industry. You need to evolve too, and that needs to be refreshed in terms of maybe how your brand looks or how your photos look online, or, I'm just having my website revamped because I haven't done that in such a long time, with my new brand values, my new brand voice, my evolved core story, because I have changed. How I show up has changed. How I'm serving people has changed. The niche that I'm in now, I have a podcast called Words That Change Lives. I've really kind of branched out to span the corporate and consumer worlds in helping people communicate more effectively, whatever that looks like to them. It's always evolving, and you've got to kind of keep rechecking in on that and updating yourself and sharing that with people so that, people evolve with you. And the final lesson, which I think has been 10, is keep the North Star in your sights. Now, what do I mean by that? Your North Star is your big vision. It's your big why. It's why are you doing this? And that's a long-term vision, right? Now, when I started this business, I had a certain vision. It has changed slightly over the years. But what I will say is now, because of life events and where I am in my life now, my vision has altered slightly. I was at one point wanting to build a much bigger empire, a much bigger beast in terms of lots of different facets, lots of different ways that people could work with me, a very much consistent live event offering, and more of an empire, right? And after the life events that have happened and where I am in my life now, it's absolutely more about lifestyle at the moment, because my children really need me, and I'm a single parent, and I need my business to run a certain way to be flexible around the hours that I need and the freedom that I need to be able to support them, have fun with them, make memories with them, take lots of time off in the holidays. And that's important to me right now. So my North Star is freedom to be there for my kids and to make memories with them. It's not to build an empire right now. It might be in a few years when their needs become different, because, my son is, he's 9, my daughter's 12, but then they have lots of needs right now that mean, I'm with them a lot of the time. I can't travel very far. I don't want to travel very far because of things that have happened and because of their particular needs. They can only stay with certain people, and that's very limited. And so I can't go off and speak in lots of different places. I can't go and travel overnight, especially during the week. I can't really go out during the week because babysitters, I can only have certain types of babysitters for them. My life is not constrained. It's different at the moment, and that's okay with me. I go out in the local area a lot. I go to lots of local events, which works for me. The majority of my business is online at the moment, which means that I got the freedom and the flexibility. In the summer holidays, I've been working around the kids. We went away. We've been doing loads of things. So it's a lifestyle business for me, and that's my North Star right now, is having the freedom to be with my kids, support my kids, and make memories with my kids. But that may change. And I think for you, it's thinking, what is your North Star? Might be very different to mine, but what is that for you? Because holding on to that will help steer the ship of your business and help you to keep important what's important, keep the main thing, and be focusing on the right thing. So you're not burning yourself out. You're not going down roads that you're not happy with. You're not taking your business in a direction that feels too big or too small, and you're keeping your North Star in place. So there we go. 10 years running a business. I feel grateful. I feel excited. I feel honoured. I feel happy, and I'm really excited for the next few years. I've got lots of plans, and then who knows? But I am so glad I made that decision 10 years ago to leave the corporate world. And I've learnt so much since then, and I really hope that this has helped you in some way. If you've listened to this, please get in touch. Let me know what you think. hello@helenpackham.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.
Thanks for listening to Words That Change Lives. Please rate, review and follow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really means the world and helps me to reach more people so that we can all harness the power of our words and change lives for the better.